Welcome back to DeepVisus, where vision meets depth. I'm your host, and in today's episode, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of neural fields and how linear adaptation influences the complex patterns of neural activity. This episode is based on Chapter 4 of the book Neural Fields, Theory and Applications by Stephen Coombes, Beim Graben, Roland Potthast, and James Wright. Spatiotemporal Pattern Formation in Neural Fields with Linear Adaptation by G. Ermentrout, Stefanos E. Folias, and Zachary P. Kilpatrick. So, here's the big question for today's review. How do spatiotemporal patterns form in neural fields when we introduce adaptation? And what role does it play in generating stationary or traveling activity patterns? Throughout this episode, we'll explore the core concepts, the math behind the patterns, and finally, provide you with an answer to that question. Let's begin. Neural fields are mathematical models that describe how neural activity spreads across the brain or other parts of the nervous system. These models are highly useful in explaining the propagation of neural signals and patterns observed in experiments. In Chapter 4 of our source material, the authors focus specifically on the effects of linear adaptation. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is linear adaptation? Simply put, it refers to a process where neurons adapt to high activity levels, essentially reducing their firing rate to return to a resting state. This is important because this feedback mechanism stabilizes neural activity, preventing the system from becoming too excitable or chaotic. The chapter discusses how such adaptation leads to the formation of spatiotemporal patterns. In simpler terms, these are patterns of neural activity that vary both in space and time, like waves of excitation traveling across the brain or stationary areas of high neural activity. For example, you can think of these patterns as localized bumps or traveling pulses of neural activity. Now, let's break it down. 1. Bifurcations and stability. The authors use an amplitude equation approach to explain how neural fields move from a uniform state to these more complex patterns. The equations describe how patterns evolve as we adjust certain parameters in the system. The key idea here is that when the adaptation strength changes, the neural network undergoes bifurcations, essentially points where the system transitions into a new state. These transitions lead to stationary or traveling activity bumps. Bifurcations refer to these critical points where the behavior of the system changes, like when activity moves from a stable pattern to a more chaotic one. 2. Types of activity patterns. The chapter focuses on two main types of activity patterns. Stationary bumps. These are areas of neural activity that stay fixed in space. Traveling bumps. These areas of high activity move across the neural field over time, resembling traveling pulses. Why is this important? Well, traveling bumps are particularly interesting because they can track external stimuli, like a visual input. But here's the catch. The stimulus needs to move at a speed close to the network's natural wave speed for it to be tracked successfully. 3. The role of adaptation. Linear adaptation, represented by the variable v, x, t, plays a pivotal role in stabilizing these patterns. It can prevent runaway excitation and regulate the speed of pulse propagation. As the adaptation rate changes, the stability of the bumps changes too, leading to new behaviors like breathers, localized oscillations, and slosho patterns, oscillations that move side to side. 4. How does external input affect these patterns? The chapter also explores how external inputs affect these neural patterns. For example, when the network receives an external stimulus, like visual input, the traveling bumps can lock to the stimulus. But if the stimulus moves too fast, the neural activity can slip out of sync and lead to oscillatory instability. In simpler terms, the network has to adapt to the pace of the input, or else it can't keep up with the stimulus, causing the pattern to wobble or even break down. Now, let's wrap things up. So, what's the answer to our initial question? Through this review, we've seen that linear adaptation plays a crucial role in shaping the behavior of neural fields. It helps form stable patterns like stationary and traveling bumps, but it also introduces new dynamics, like oscillations or drifting, when the system becomes unstable. The ability of neural fields to adapt to external stimuli, whether through natural wave speeds or tracking external inputs, adds a layer of complexity to the way our brain processes and reacts to signals. Conclusion: the neural network's ability to create and stabilize patterns through adaptation is vital in understanding how our brain handles complex signals, from visual stimuli to more abstract inputs. Before we close, I want to leave you with a question to think about for the next episode. How do these neural patterns evolve when we introduce more complex types of adaptation? Or what happens when the system interacts with noise or disorder? Stay tuned for the next episode of DeepVisus, where we'll continue exploring the fascinating world of neural dynamics and how vision truly meets depth. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one.